know what I mean? But if you notice, it was a rat on television saying he the one did the shooting, this happened, that happened, this happened, that happened, right?
Right.
If you think about it, right?
Right.
Why you think nobody been arrested if they said they didn't want to kill Tupac?
Because they're snitching to the police, so they ain't
Not
gonna get
just
arrested.
to snitch and be smart, son. Because Tupac not
I ain't as smart
dead.
as you should.
Tupac not dead. He was dead. They'd be arresting those dudes for murder. You know he was somewhere smoking a Cuban cigar on the island
you're doing
somewhere.
right
You know
now.
what I mean?
Now this shit is an anomaly to me. You know, I just got finished watching that Gene Deal series on Vlad TV. Man, if I told you that a man could perjure himself on 3 different fucking platforms, I would have said it wasn't possible. You would think that a nigga would watch the last episode of his own statements and make sure that he didn't tell anything additional, leave out any parts, so that basically he could recover his statements. Now, I know that Biggie been dead since 1997, and I'm sure over the years certain things were forgotten and other things were remembered. But there's certain facts about this case that through every other forum that I seen Gene Deal on, I never heard him say before, and I personally did not know. As a matter of fact, I had to really let the shit soak in, because it's about time for us to get over this shit. We've been salivating over the same 2 guys for the last 25 years, trying to figure out what happened. And it really doesn't make sense, because the guy that was in the car with Tupac, in my opinion, said exactly what happened. He said, and I quote, "There was a particular rat on TV that said they shot Tupac and killed him. And if that's the case, why haven't they been arrested?" And then the reporter goes on to say, "That's because they snitching to the police." And Chuck said, "Nah, man, be smart, son. This ain't about snitching. This is because Tupac ain't dead. Tupac on an island smoking a Cuban somewhere." Now, what island would Tupac be on smoking a Cuban somewhere? Yeah. Would it perhaps be the same island that Assata Shakur is on? Is this the reason that Beyonce and Jay-Z and Barack Obama and Michelle Obama and others have been granted the pass to go to Cuba so they could sit down and talk to one particular Tupac Shakur? No, of course not. Had nothing to do with that. Now, what Beyonce and Jay went to Cuba for, one could only speculate. But I do know for a fact that shortly after Jay-Z visited Cuba, Roc Nation then, if I'm correct, if it's Roc Nation, might be the streaming platform that Jay-Z owns. Not really sure. But one of them, through Jay-Z, acquired all the rights to songs recorded by one Tupac Shakur, aka Lassane Paris Crooks, as Wikipedia states as his legal name, which I never even knew none of that shit until the internet era. And I was there. It was during that time when Tupac got shot, I was already graduated from high school at this time, just freshly graduated. I graduated in 96. Pac died in 96. So that year is synonymous with a lot for me. Very emotional year, because a few months later, then the notorious B.I.G. would be assassinated. And I was on my way to get locked up and going to do some time. And I remember the empty feeling I had when Big got killed. Not because I was a big fan, even though I was a big fan, but it was in the fashion in which he died. You know, before this era, unlike now where rappers get gunned down with no thought, back then, only one person in the whole entire rap hip-hop world had been killed by gunfire, and that was Scott LaRock. And that was all the way from, you know, the early 80s, well until 96, that we had never, ever lost an artist to gun violence. We lost Trouble T. Roy, we lost Sweet T, we lost a few artists, but it was due to natural causes. It wasn't due to no gunfire. Virtually until then, I viewed celebrities as untouchable. And then something else was brought to my attention. But I'll say that segment for another talk. One about rappers being signed to other rappers. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Back to the story at hand. Gene Deal. You, my friend, as a police officer, it's no wonder you can't perjure yourself. You know, I never knew Gene was a parole officer or an officer. I always just thought he was a bodyguard. Until about 5 years ago, you know, doing some research on him. And then when he did the MREC interview, the one last big night or the last big stand or whatever he called it, that's when he revealed that he worked for the New York State Parole Office. Now, the contradicting statements between him and the other guy, Greg Kading, are wildly different. Greg Kading blames a Poochie Faust, you know. But Gene Deal and Lil C swore they saw a Muslim-looking dude with a bow tie. When you look at the composite sketch of whom they say was the guy that killed the notorious B.I.G. or the suspicious-looking character whom they think was casing the joint and might have pulled the trigger, he favors the Amir Muhammad composite sketch more than a Poochie Faust does. But on a previous documentary that I've done, the face is too fat and he looks more like a Kevin Gaines to me. Considering that Kevin Gaines was killed 9 days after the notorious B.I.G. by another LAPD officer named Frank Liga. I mean, this story stinks to high hell. You know, there's a cover-up from the ground up. But let the truth be the truth. The only reason I can consider the reason why people keep watching all the different events that take place with this case is because we all want to know the truth, right? What happened to Tupac Shakur? What happened to the notorious B.I.G.? What happened to Yaki Gaddafi? What happened to Fatal Hussein? What happened to Gonzo? You know, one thing that I know for sure is that Orlando Anderson Tupac Shakur and Gonzo, look at their eyebrows and look at the downturn of their nose. And you can conclude one thing: Jewish origins. You know, who owns Hollywood? Who was the progenitors of Hollywood? All this shit bothers me, and it stinks to high hell. But the one thing y'all can't trick people from the era with is this Jurassic 5 story. You see, I remember when the Jurassic 5 came out with that Golden song. And I thought nothing of it, wasn't a fan of it. I could see these guys had extreme talent, but nothing else. But now in this era with face recognition and with certain technology, including the internet, you can do searches. You can analyze faces, and you can do a whole lot of homework on what happened. And you'll notice that within every story, there's shady business going on, shady understanding. It seems like, in my opinion, when people find the religious value, when they come into a certain understanding of being a grown man and they gain more insight on God and the spiritual father, that they no longer want for themselves what they used to want, which was money, fame, and women through deceptive practices in the entertainment world. Right now, we're going through one of the major distractions with the R. Kelly case. And I'll save that conversation for another day. But at the end of the day, I don't think Tupac, the Notorious B.I.G., Fatal Hussein, or Eazy-E for even that matter, has perished. I think they're all alive. And the sickest part of it is I think they're right in our faces.